Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with the Apester. I am the Apester himself. Man, today is going to be such a special episode, man. I absolutely love him. He is one of the greatest superstars ever of all time, one of the greatest legends of all time. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the phenom, the Undertaker. I figured this would be the last part of this Brothers of Destruction saga that we're talking about here. So the first episode was talking about the Brothers of Destruction. The last episode was talking about Kane. And this episode is talking about The Undertaker. I may incorporate Paul Bearer into this as well, but that's a separate podcast. And that might be the last part, because how could we talk about the Brothers of Destruction and not talk about Paul Bearer? I figured I would save him for last because, if it wasn't for Paul Bearer, Kane and Undertaker wouldn't really be a team, quite frankly. I currently sit here in my living room just watching SmackDown. It is on mute right now, so it's not playing in the background. Currently, it is July 28th, 2023. That is right. Right now, I'm watching the match between Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. This is for the qualifying match for the United States Championship, Austin Theory's U.S. title. I'm trying to pump out these podcasts a little bit quicker because I do want to review SummerSlam, and I want to keep the Brothers of Destruction podcasts together. Like, I want to keep that whole saga together, in one sequence, if that makes any sense. I didn't want to upload so Brothers of Destruction, Kane, and then SummerSlam, and then Undertaker, Paul Bearer. I figured I would just upload in order. I can upload Brothers of Destruction, Kane, Undertaker, Paul Bearer. Even though I should have started with Paul Bearer because, that's kind of how it all started. But yeah, this is the way. I mean, it is what it is now. I mean, it's too late. I already uploaded it. So the Kane one only had 2 plays, man, which kind of makes me sad. But you're not gonna really get anywhere unless you keep putting up some podcasts. I kind of learned that sort of the hard way with YouTube, and I still to this day, like, if I upload a video on YouTube, I only get like a handful of views, if that. But man, every view counts. Every view, really, I appreciate it. Even though it was 2 views on the last episode, man, I'll still keep pumping it out anyway because I love doing it. May not give up on it just yet. I know I did say it might last an episode, it might last 10 episodes, it might last forever. I don't know how long this could last. I could upload an episode right now and then I'll never upload again. I don't know. And I say upload, I'm sorry. I come from the YouTube world, for those of you who don't know. I do highly recommend you listen to my first ever podcast. It does go on to it's an introduction about me, and I just introduce myself, obviously, because it's an introduction. Introduction is introduce myself, isn't it? I'm going to Water Country. It's up in New Hampshire. Going Sunday. Can't wait for that. I'll be going with with a couple friends and my girlfriend, so that'll be very fun for all of us. I can't wait. I've been dying to go for a long time now. To go to Water Country. It's been a long time for me since I've been. Somebody should get home, sorry. Yeah. I mean, literally, I'm just like so stoked about it because it's been like 6-7 years in the making because I haven't been that long. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As far as updates, what's going on with me, I don't know. Usually I don't give updates, but whatever, I don't know. Let's just get to the topic. The Undertaker. Here we go. So I do have an article here pulled up against from the Wikipedia. I'm just gonna go off of this for some of it. A lot of it, quite a few of it, I know about, honestly. But there are rivalries in here that I don't really recognize. I'm gonna try not to read through this whole thing. Like I did with the last episode. I do apologize for that I basically just spent an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was, just reading off an article. I'm trying the best I can to use my own words. I do not prepare notes for these podcasts. I just go off of the Wikipedia as I'm recording. So right now I'm on Wikipedia. I have Undertaker pulled up here. Mark Calloway is his real name. But let's get started. We're going to get started with his early life, obviously, and his early career in professional wrestling. I do know quite a bit when it comes to I would say maybe like early 90s, I guess, late 90s. And also the current stuff. Well, I'm not going to say today, but I would say the Triple H and Shawn Michaels saga that they had, and I can't wait to talk about that. It's pretty cool. Even though I never watched wrestling at the time, I started watching it after WrestleMania 28, which was the end of an era match that they had. Triple H, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, special guest referee. That was probably the most underrated match that I've ever seen. And I'll go in depth. I'll probably go in depth with that as to why, but let's get started. I'm going to try keeping this podcast as short as possible because it probably could be a little long. So here we go. The Undertaker. Here he is, and it's kind of funny because I'm watching a commercial right now, and in my local area, there's going to be some immortalseats.com, whatever. I guess we get to meet Kane, and Kane literally just came up as I mentioned Undertaker. But anyway, so the Undertaker. Here we go. His real name, Mark William Calloway. He was born March 24th, 1965. So that makes him 58 years old today. Obviously, everybody knows him as the Undertaker. He had multiple personas. He started off with many personas. But before I get to that, I'll get to, wow, I didn't even know this. He has 5 children. I didn't even know that. I know he had a son and a younger daughter. I didn't know he had 5 children. That's crazy. I really didn't know. So this is a good thing I got these things pulled up because, there's things that I don't know about The Undertaker, but there are a lot of things, too, that I do know about him. So I am going to try to use as much of my own words as possible. But the spouses, obviously, I don't remember that. So he's got here, so from 1989 to 1999, he was married to Jody Lynn. And then from 2000 to 2007, he was married to Sarah Frank. If you guys don't know, he had a tattoo under his like near his throat area with the name Sarah on it, and then it ended up getting crossed off to putting something else. I don't know what he has there now, but and now to this day, since 2010, he's now married to former wrestler Michelle McCool. Again, there's Kane on my TV appearing, as if we just couldn't get enough of Kane. And there's a couple other people, too, showing up. Anyway, back to the topic here. But 5 children, that's crazy. So he had multiple personas throughout his career. I'm going to read this one out, actually, last, because a lot of people don't really know about it. But a lot of people don't know about a lot of these names. But Commando, Mark Callis, Mean Mark, Dice Morgan, The Master of Pain, The Punisher, Texas Red, The Undertaker, obviously, and Kane, The Undertaker. A lot of people don't know that when he debuted, he started off as Kane, The Undertaker, and I'll get to that in just a minute. And it appears that Rey Mysterio is being tended to by medics. I don't know why. Again, I'm watching SmackDown right now as I'm doing this podcast, so go ahead and watch it. It looks like a pretty good match, Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio. But anyway, Undertaker is 6'10", 309 pounds. He is billed from Death Valley in storyline. I guess you could say in storyline. I don't know. I don't know if that's the exact place, but it also does say here, Houston, Texas. He was trained by Buzz Sawyer. And he made his wrestling debut June 26th of 1987, and he retired, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, don't know. He retired November 22nd, 2020, and excuse me, I want to hear this. That's crazy. Well, Rey Mysterio is unable to compete in the match, apparently, and Santos Escobar is the winner. Okay, well, that's crazy. Okay, I promise I'm not going to interrupt anymore unless it's something insane. Anyway, well, they're both hugging it out now. Okay, I'll stop, I promise. Okay, so Undertaker retired November 22nd, 2020. That was the Survivor Series pay-per-view. Back then, there was nobody in the arena, nobody in the ring because it was the COVID era. They had the monitors back then. So, yeah, I wish there were people there for his retirement because it would have been pretty nice. But I do like in his retirement how he had like the hologram of Paul Bear when he went on the one knee and did the knee thing. And man, it was just so cool to see that. So cool to see Paul Bear. But it's really, that's kind of the thing they can take advantage of when the fans are there, but they're not at the same time. Like everyone's watching at home. But it is an advantage right there, you know what I mean? So, and you get to do these cool holograms and whatnot. And then the matches that they had too, like let's say Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, for example, that was a crazy match too. So he, Mr. Undertaker began his career in 1987, working under a couple other gimmicks in WCCW. Sorry. So he basically, he also was in WCW briefly. It wasn't for that long. It was in 1989. And then he basically joined WWF in 1990. So it was pretty quick. He got to WWE pretty quickly. In a matter of 3 years, he got to WWE, and I'll get to his debut, which was really cool. The only thing I don't know about that day was, well, one, I was not born. I was like negative 10 years old. Number two, I don't know the date that it occurred. I know it was November. It might have been November 22nd to be exact, actually, which is pretty ironic because he retired November 22nd. So let's go ahead. We'll get to that. So Undertaker was Mr. Calloway was rebranded as The Undertaker once he joined WWE. So basically, looks like we're just going to go straight to talking about Undertaker and WWE. No, we're not. Hang on. No, sorry. I'm just, like I said, I'm just going off the article. Like, I'm trying to go in order with the article here, like, or his early life to, like, I guess this is just a brief, like, thing about The Undertaker. Yeah, saying about the streak and all that. I'll get to the streak, definitely, for sure. I'll probably even read out everybody in order in the streak as well. A lot of people don't, or a lot of people really fond with the streak. And man, when that shit ended, I almost cried. I literally cried on it. I didn't, not almost cried. I did cry, honestly. I shed a tear. I didn't watch it, but I seen Twitter. I was just looking at Twitter because, like, at the time, I didn't buy the pay-per-views or anything like that. I didn't have the W Network if it was out at that point. I don't really know if it was out at that point. But I knew it was somewhere in that neighborhood where WWE Network did come out. But man, it was just, I don't know. I just was looking at Twitter, looking at people tweeting and stuff, like to see, hey, what's going on with the event, you know. And then I see Twitter explode. The streak is over. The streak is over. The streak is over. And then later on, or maybe the next day, I go to look at YouTube, and they upload a video of Undertaker being pinned clean. 1, 2, 3. People were shocked. I'm looking at people's live reactions as they were in the arena. People didn't know what to do, man. It was just a crazy time. But I'll get into that a little bit later on, the streak. How Brock Lesnar shouldn't have been the one to break it. But I do have in mind who exactly should have broken the streak, and I will get to that later. I will not spoil that right now. So we get to his early life. Obviously, like I've said, he's born in Houston, Texas, March 24th, 1965. So he has a couple kids here. I'm not going to go through that. He was in high school, and he was a member he was in football and basketball. Yeah, so he was a big kid back then, you know, and he still is, obviously. So he was a big boy back then. So he was really good for sports. He was, you know, he had a knack for it, just like Kane. Kane loved sports, and he had a knack for it. So Undertaker ended up doing being part of some football and basketball teams. And he also graduated in 1983 and began studying basketball scholarship. So in 1985, he enrolled in Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth, Texas, where he majored in sports management and played as a center of the Rams in 1985 to 1986 season, so that was a pretty short stint there. In 86, Calloway dropped out of the university to focus on a career in sports, briefly considered playing professional basketball in Europe before deciding to focus on professional wrestling. And this is where we get to his debut, I believe, in WCCW. So this takes us to his early career, 1987 to 1990. This is basically in his time where he participated in WCCW and WCW briefly, until he debuted in 1990 as The Undertaker, as we all know and love, and I will get to that in a moment. So, Undertaker basically got trained by Buzz Sawyer, who was also a former wrestler as well. Why is it saying... Okay. Sorry, there was just a Wikipedia is not for sale message just came up. I'm sorry, that's kind of weird. So, Buzz Sawyer was a former wrestler as well, so he trained The Undertaker to become a wrestler in late 1986. But Undertaker disliked Sawyer, who reportedly lacked commitment and provided a limited education. So, my assumption is that maybe he didn't teach him that well. So Calloway learned on the job thereafter. So basically, I'm just assuming Undertaker learned the craft by just doing it, honestly. And he really had a niche for it. Like, he really, really did. And if he does it, if he were to do it to this day, like, shit, he could still go, honestly. He really can. I mean, a little slower than what he used to be back in the day, but he could still go. So Undertaker, a lot of people don't know, Undertaker performed under a mask as Texas Red. That was basically his debut. Calloway wrestled his first match June 26, 1987 for WCCW, or World Class Championship Wrestling, losing to Bruiser Brody at the Dallas Sportatorium. He was also accompanied to the ring by Percy Pringle III. For those of you who don't know who Percy Pringle is, Percy Pringle is Paul Bearer. That's right. No jokes there. Undertaker was managed by Paul Bearer before he was The Undertaker. And how cool was that? And I'll get into that in a little bit, how it just all fell into place when he debuted as Undertaker and Paul Bearer became his manager again. How it just all fell into place so perfectly. The puzzle pieces just came together like just perfectly. I can't find another word. It's just perfect. It was perfect. It could not have been any more perfect. Who's coming out? Oh, LA Knight's coming out now. Oh, I promised I wouldn't talk about SmackDown. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Please excuse me. Let's see. Anyway. So he used to come out with Paul Bearer, but he was named Percy Pringle III at the time. Just skimming through this a little bit here, so I'm not going to read all of this crap. So in 1988, Mark Calloway joined Continental Wrestling Association, or CWA. He wrestled under several gimmicks. Basically, Undertaker was just jumping company to company here. I think it was like three or four different companies before Undertaker would finally jump ship to WWE. So, and he came out with Dutch Mantel, or a lot of people know him as Zeb Coulter. Zeb Coulter used to come out with Jack Swagger back in like 2014, whenever it was. April the 1st, the Master of Pain, Undertaker, won his first professional wrestling championship by defeating Jerry Lawler for the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship. Just over 3 weeks had passed when Lawler became the first man to pin him, giving it back to him. While performing as the Punisher, Calloway won the WCWA Texas Heavyweight Championship on October 5th, 1989, when Eric Embry forfeited the title. This takes us to WCW in 1989 to 1990. This is the last stop until he gets to WWE, basically. And he comes out as Mean Mark. A couple of names as well, like Mean Mark Callis, or just Mean Mark. In 1989, Calloway joined World Championship Wrestling (WCW) as a villain and adopted the ring name Mean Mark Callis, a name devised for him by Terry Funk. Terry Funk, by the way, another great legend, one of the greatest to ever do it. He was portrayed as a sinister force wearing predominantly black ring attire and was described by announcer Jim Ross as having a fondness of pet snakes and the music of Ozzy Osbourne. So this is something I forgot. Undertaker basically was part of a tag team known as the Skyscrapers, with Sid Vicious, or a lot of people know Sid Vicious as Psycho Sid. Made his debut January 3rd, 1990. I believe that was Sid Vicious' debut. Match later televised against Agent Steel and Randy Harris. The new tag team gained some notoriety of Clash of the Champions X when they beat down the Road Warriors after their match. However, Callis' partner Dan Spivey, I hope I pronounced that right, left WCW days before their Chicago street fight against the Road Warriors at Wrestle War. Callis and replacement Masked Skyscraper were defeated in the street fight, and the team broke up soon afterwards. So now Undertaker at this point is on a singles run, and he is being managed by Paul E. Dangerously, known to everybody as Paul Heyman, which is pretty cool. So basically at this point, like, he started to question his career in WCW. And I guess the company booker, Ole Anderson, wanted to renew the contract. No, I'm sorry. Calloway later began to question his future in WCW after being told by company booker Ole Anderson during contract renewal discussions that nobody would ever pay money to watch him perform. It was in response to this that Calloway made numerous efforts to join the WWF, going to many lengths to land a meeting with Vince McMahon. So if I remember correctly watching the Undertaker documentary, I believe Undertaker was trying to get into WWF at the time, and Vince McMahon did not see Undertaker as a draw. He saw his ring work, and he's like, listen, like, I don't see him as, like, I just don't see him, in the future progressing, like, not progressing, but, like, I just don't see something in him, you know? But Bruce Pritchard, on the other hand, when he saw his work, he was like, bro, like, this guy is fantastic. We have to bring him in. And that's when he talked to Vince McMahon about it, and Vince McMahon was just iffy about it. He was like, oh, I don't know, you know, nobody would really pay money to see him. And that's not until, I believe it was Bruce Pritchard as well. Again, Bruce Pritchard, I believe, came up with the gimmick of The Undertaker. Among routes Calloway took to land a meeting with McMahon was trying to convince individuals acquainted with McMahon or already existing WWF talent to recommend him into the WWF, such as Hulk Hogan, Paul Heyman, Bruce Pritchard, just like I mentioned, crediting the latter for arranging the meeting at McMahon's mansion. So, oh, excuse me, I got some neighbors outside in the hallway. Anyway, so if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, Paul Heyman, and Bruce Pritchard, we probably would have never seen Undertaker in WWE, honestly. And if we did, he would have been a jobber. I honestly believe that. So Undertaker immediately, he told WCW, he's like, listen, I'm out of here, like, I'm jumping ship. And he went to have the meeting with Vince McMahon, and the rest is history. He made his debut in 1990, and I'll discuss that in just a minute. But it seems as though here, Undertaker also wrestled in New Japan Pro Wrestling as the Punisher, Dice Morgan. After leaving WCW, he briefly returned to the USWA to participate in a tournament to determine the new USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion. Calloway defeated Bill Dundee in the first round, but lost to Jerry Lawler in the quarterfinals. And that takes us to the debut of The Undertaker. Undertaker basically signed in October of 1990 and made his debut November of 1990. So the idea of the Undertaker character was made up by, I believe it was Bruce Pritchard. So Bruce Pritchard had this idea of a Cain and Abel story, or like a Cain and Abel effect to his character. So he came up with the idea of making him an Undertaker, like an actual Western Undertaker. Like you go into a saloon. I mentioned last episode, I think it was the last episode, or the Brothers of Destruction episode. I believe I mentioned bar, and I didn't mean bar. I mean saloon. You walk into a Western saloon and Western bar saloon. I guess it's the same thing, but anyway, you walk into a saloon and you see that one guy. You know, it's an Undertaker, or maybe like at a funeral you see an Undertaker. You know what I mean? So that's the character that Bruce Pritchard had for the Undertaker, and they went with it, and the rest was history. So basically, originally, Mr. McMahon had named him Kane the Undertaker, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to get to Undertaker's debut. Right now, like I said, I'm not reading through any of this article right now. Right now, this is all coming from me. So WWF at the time was hyping up this hatching of this egg. There was an egg every week. It would show up on WWE Superstars, whatever show they had at the time, on live events too. Like they were promoting this egg, and it was at Survivor Series. It was going to hatch, and Undertaker at the time was afraid. He saw the egg at Survivor Series, and he was afraid, and he knew he was making the debut at Survivor Series, but he was really afraid that he was going to come out in that egg and come out as like the Chicken Man or something, you know? I forgot the name he said in his documentary. I almost said podcast, but an Undertaker podcast would be pretty cool though. Anyway, so Undertaker thought he was going to hatch out of that egg, but a lot of people don't know this, but the Gobbledygooker ended up hatching out of that egg, and that was when the Gobbledygooker made his debut in WWF. A lot of people don't know that we had another debut in that same night. It was the Gobbledygooker. For those of you who don't know who the Gobbledygooker is, he is basically a chicken. He's dressed in a chicken suit, and he goes around, and, you know, I don't know much about him, but I know he's just dressed in a chicken suit, to be honest with you. That's basically it. He goes around like a chicken. Just, literally, there was no, that's no explanation. That's literally it. But anyway, Undertaker one time, I believe he was home, and he got this phone call from Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon, you know, and Undertaker at the time, he didn't know about The Undertaker. Like, he didn't know about that character at the time. So Vince McMahon calls him up. So at the time, obviously, Undertaker was not Undertaker. At the time, Undertaker was just Mean Mark. And Vince McMahon, you know, he gets a call from Vince, and Vince McMahon says, "Is this The Undertaker?" And Undertaker, on the other line, I'm going to refer to him as Mark Calloway, because at the time, he wasn't The Undertaker. But anyway, Vince McMahon on the other line, "Hey, is this The Undertaker?" And then Mark Calloway, he goes, "The Undertaker?" He's like, like he puts the phone down for a minute, and he says, "The Undertaker? Who's The Undertaker?" And then he thinks about it, and he's like, "Oh," and he's he's playing along with it, like saying, "Okay," thinking to himself, "Thank God I'm not hatching out of that egg. Thank God, you know." And he goes back on the phone, "Yeah, this is The Undertaker." And then they start talking about his debut and what they want to do with his character and all that. And the rest is history. He debuts as The Undertaker. So this takes us to his debut. I just need to see the date, exactly what day it was with his debut. And it's crazy. A lot of people think Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series, but that's not the case. He actually debuted. It was a live event. Let me see if I can find the date here. I know it was a live event. I'm just reading all over the place here. He made his overall WWF debut on November 19th, 1990 at a taping of WWF Superstars, quickly defeating his very first opponent, Mario Mancini, in a singles match. This match was filmed 3 days prior to The Undertaker's televised debut, November 22nd, 1990. Yes, I was right. November 22nd, 1990. It is Survivor Series. There is a match between the Dream Team and the $1 Million Team. So the Dream Team basically consisted of Dusty Rhodes. Let me see. This talks about the match. Dusty Rhodes, Coco Beware was in the match. A couple of I was gonna name the wrestlers who were in it, but it doesn't really state all of them. But I was gonna say Bret Hart was in it too. I believe. I think under a part Bret Hart was in there. I think, and Bret Hart was like really early in his career, if that's the case. So it was the Dream Team with Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes was the captain of that team versus the $1 Million Team and Ted DiBiase, who was the $1 Million Man. Ted DiBiase, who was the leader, of course, of that group. And that takes us to the match itself. The Ted DiBiase had a mystery partner, excuse me. He had a mystery partner for his team. There were three men in each team. But Ted DiBiase was down a man. So everybody had came out. And Ted DiBiase gets on the microphone and he says, "Allow me to introduce to you my mystery partner. He is from Death Valley. He weighs 300 and some odd pounds. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you The Undertaker." Undertaker's music plays. Out comes The Undertaker with Brother Love, Bruce Pritchard. Out comes Undertaker with Bruce Pritchard for his official debut that everybody knows and loves. Undertaker comes out, and he is this mountain of a man. He is in a black trench coat with a black hat. He has gray gloves with the gray part like on his boots. And everybody's looking at it, and he's got the makeup under his eyes and stuff, and everybody's looking at this man like, holy cow, this man is huge. Everybody was just silent. Literally everyone and their mothers were silent. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. Not many people knew who that man really was. Not many people knew that was Mean Mark Callis under that gimmick. But it was a completely different person, man. Undertaker played that character so perfectly, and he can do it to this day. He can play that character so perfectly. And he had such a mystique to that character, it was absolutely insane. Even outside of WWE, like outside of like live events and tapings, he was The Undertaker. He was dressed up all in black. He would come, like, just walk, even to his limo or whatever it is, he would just walk with that Undertaker-esque walk. Man, he just played the character 24/7 as long as he was in front of people in public outside of his house. He would play that character 100%. So he comes out, and I believe Roddy Piper was on commentary, and he goes, "Look at the size of that ham hock." And then, and then Roddy Piper goes, "Check out them drumsticks, baby." I found it so funny. Gorilla Monsoon was on commentary as well. The late great Gorilla Monsoon, rest in peace to that man. He was an awesome man back in the 80s. Early 90s. He was definitely about 7 feet at least back then, or 6'10"-ish, 6'10", yeah, about 6'10". But he was pretty close to 7 feet. Obviously, with age, you get shorter, but he comes out, he's on a warpath. He takes down everybody in sight. A couple tombstones. I believe it was an elimination match, if I'm not mistaken, a 6-man elimination match. And and he eliminated a couple people, but at the end of the day, the Dream Team, I believe, ended up winning that. I'm not 100% sure, but Undertaker got led to the back. He was following, I believe it was Ted, I don't know who he was following. He was following somebody to the backstage area, and I believe it was the $1 Million Team that won the match. Undertaker eliminated Koko Beware a minute into the match with his finisher, the Tombstone Piledriver. This was the first time we see Undertaker pull off the Tombstone on a televised event. Pretty crazy. A lot of people didn't know what he was doing. A lot of people just thought it was just a regular piledriver, but he basically did it like backwards in a way. So instead of the opponent facing outward, they were facing inward toward the Undertaker. Let me see. In 2018, Koko Beware shared that directly following his this match that night, he confronted The Undertaker with serious objections to what he felt was a botched tombstone. I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting fact right there. During the match, Undertaker also eliminated Dusty Rhodes before being counted out. However, his team won the match with DiBiase being the sole survival. Yep, the $1 Million Team won the match. So after this, Undertaker would participate in a couple matches here and there. They were basically squash matches. He would come out as Kane, the Undertaker. So it's kind of like Bret, the Hitman Hart, like Bret Hart, the Hitman. But Undertaker his name was technically Kane, and he was an Undertaker. Kane, the Undertaker. That name was shortly dropped. Don't know when, but it was dropped very quickly. And it ended up going to his brother Kane, who I've already discussed in another podcast. That's another podcast for another day that I've already done, so go ahead and check that out. In February of 1991, Brother Love delegated his short-lived management role of The Undertaker over to Paul Bearer. And this is where I was saying that it would all fit together perfectly. So Brother Love didn't really make sense for The Undertaker. Like, as a manager, it didn't really make sense. So they decided to take Percy Pringle and repackage him as Paul Bearer. And what makes this whole thing crazy is that in real life, Paul Bearer was he used to work in a funeral home. Literally. He used to work in a funeral home. And Undertaker and funeral homes and scary, and it just ties in so perfectly. And the fact that he used to be managed by Percy Pringle or Paul Bearer is crazy. It all fits together like a puzzle, and it fits so perfectly at the time. So Brother Love, like I said, he basically stepped down as the managing role with The Undertaker and gave the role to Paul Bearer. The rest was history, honestly. Undertaker would go on many years to come, or many years later, with Paul Bearer, coming out with Paul Bearer in squash match. He would have squash matches. At this point, he was considered not Kane the Undertaker. He was coming out as The Undertaker. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. The beginning of the streak in 1991. So this was WrestleMania 7, March 24th, 1991. He defeated Jimmy Snuka to start the streak. The streak was not recognized until he faced off against Ric Flair and he started putting his fingers up, and that's when he started to realize, like, wait a minute, I'm undefeated at WrestleMania. And that's when the streak really became the streak. So, and at that point, after that, so basically when he faced Randy Orton, which I'll get into later, that's when the streak became like a prize. Like, it became like a goal to beat the streak. Like, beating the streak was a goal. Like, it was like, all right, I'm not just trying to beat you. I'm trying to beat you and defeat the streak. Like, this is, like, that was literally the story up until 2014 when the streak was broken, and I'll get into that later on as well. But I'm trying to fast forward through this quickly because we do have a lot to go over here with his career, because his career is, I could go on for like 4 or 5 hours with his career, honestly. It was an absolutely incredible career. It was like a 32, 33-year career that he had. It was absolutely incredible career. Undertaker, in my book, the greatest of all time. Period. Don't want to hear it. I know Ric Flair's up there, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Stone Cold Steve Austin, all these guys are up there. But Undertaker, to me, is on top of the pedestal. He is not the foundation, because Andre the Giant, I would say, is the foundation, but, or even like, you know, like guys like Bob Backlund and other guys, or even before Andre the Giant, like Luthez and all these other guys that used to wrestle. Those are the guys at the foundation. But if you really want to, dude, Undertaker, for his time, was the foundation. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Period. Which, speaking of which, I would have loved to see Undertaker and Andre the Giant go at it. That would have been pretty interesting. Both of them in their prime, by the way. So I would say Undertaker, like in his Western Mortician gimmick, definitely, because back then he was very strong, very undefeated almost. Which, by the way, Undertaker mentioned in his documentary, he mentioned this. The Western Mortician character, seeing as we're in the topic of this Western Mortician character, because we're still in the Western Mortician character until 1994 when he goes on to be the Dead Man. He has the purple gear that everybody knows and loves. I'm talking about the gray gear, though, the Western Mortician era. So, in this era, Undertaker was very, like, he was like a cat. He would move very slowly, and then, bam, the snap of a finger, the blink of an eye, he would hit a move, and then he would slow it back down again. And then everybody would just be like, whoa, what was that? It's kind of like a horror movie. Like, you have a monster slowly walking up to you, and then all of a sudden he attacks you, and then he slows back down, or he disappears. And everyone's just like, whoa. Everyone in the movie theater is like, whoa, like, what the hell was that? You know? So Undertaker back then was that character. And in the early stages of his purple gear was that character as well, until he started to be a lot more active, a lot more, like, he started moving a lot more quicker, and he wasn't moving slowly. But I'd say, like, early 1994, he was still that character, that cat-like character. I'm going to use that word, cat-like character. So basically, the streak started with Jimmy Snuka, the Superfly. He defeated him quickly, and then the next WrestleMania, he ended up defeating Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake the Snake basically got interfered with Undertaker's feud against Ultimate Warrior that they had, and they had a body bag match at one point in '91. Jake the Snake got interfered in I guess in one of these matches. Jake the Snake, by the way, was on a whole different level back in the day. He was an insane, like, he was like very quiet, like he would speak very quietly. Like he would be like this, like talking like this, very soft, you know. And it made it very like it say, hey, like, speak up, like I can't hear you back here. But that's the thing, like, he's speaking quietly and you can't hear it, but that just makes you try to listen harder. You know what I mean? And that character too was just incredible. But anyway, back to the Undertaker. He had a feud with Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake. He also went on to defeat couple other people. I'm gonna go into his WrestleMania defeats now here. So, by the way, so I believe it was King Kong Bundy after. Let me see. I don't know if they have a list here. Let me pull up a list here. Excuse me 1 minute here. Undertaker streak in order. So we're just going to put that up here real quick. I don't know the full list, but I know most of it. I know about 98% of the people. But actually, matter of fact, I might even be able to name 100% of the people, but just not in order. Especially like in the earlier days. So I kind of need help here with this one. So, let's see. Let's go here. Let's see. So, Undertaker streak in order. We're going to type that. Sorry, I typed in something else. So, here we go. I just found this website here. It basically just says everything here. So the WrestleMania 7, it was Jimmy Superfly Snuka. He became Snooker. That's when he became 1-0. It was a singles match. The next WrestleMania 8, was Jake the Snake, 2-0, singles match. The next match was WrestleMania 9 against Giant Gonzalez. He was 3-0. It was a singles match. However, it was told to be the worst, actually, Undertaker match in history. And it ended in a disqualification, and Giant Gonzalez, I guess, used a chloroform to knock Undertaker out. Undertaker came back in the match. The next one was WrestleMania 11. Yes, Undertaker skipped WrestleMania 10 due to an injury. WrestleMania 11 came up, though, and it was King Kong Bundy, 4-0. It was a singles match, and Larry Young was the special guest referee. WrestleMania 12 with Diesel, 5-0. This is a singles match. WrestleMania 13 with Psycho Sid. No disqualification match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. This is when he actually won the title for, I believe, the second time in his career. Because Undertaker had won the WWF title against Hulk Hogan at one point. That was the first time Undertaker won a world title. And I will get to that soon. WrestleMania 14, of course, against Kane. Everybody knows this match. It was in Boston. WrestleMania 14, singles match. WrestleMania 15 against the Big Boss Man, 8-0. It was a Hell in a Cell match. A lot of people tend to forget that match. The next one was WrestleMania 17. He skipped WrestleMania 16 due to an injury. Again, WrestleMania 17 against Triple H, 9-0. It was a singles match. And WrestleMania 18, he was 10-0 against Ric Flair. It was a no disqualification match. And at this point, he started to notice, and this was in his documentary, he said he started to notice that, hey, I'm undefeated. So that's why he did the whole countdown, whatever, with his fingers. That takes us to WrestleMania 19 with the Big Show and A-Train, 11-0. It was a 2-on-1 handicap match. It was actually supposed to be a tag team match, but I believe Undertaker's partner was not... I guess his Undertaker's partner had gotten injured or something. So Undertaker ended up doing a 2-on-1 handicap, and he won again. WrestleMania 20 with Kane. He was 12-0. It was a singles match. This was his return as the Dead Man gimmick. WrestleMania 21. Now, this is the point where the streak becomes an objective. Like, the objective is not only to defeat The Undertaker, but to defeat the streak. So this is at the point now, from here on out, is to defeat the streak. Period. It's not because of a rivalry. Well, it is because of a rivalry, but it's mainly to beat the streak. Like, at this point, from here on out, it's okay, I have a rivalry with you, but it's also, I have to beat the streak. So, WrestleMania 21, Randy Orton. It's a singles match. He goes 13-0. WrestleMania 22 with Mark Henry. It was a casket match. WrestleMania 23 with Batista. Did I say 23 for Mark Henry? I'm sorry, 22. If I said WrestleMania 23 for Mark Henry, I'm sorry. It was WrestleMania 22. WrestleMania 23 with Batista. He was 15-0. It was for the World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously, Undertaker won that match. Became the new World Heavyweight Champion. Just like with Edge here at WrestleMania 24, he became 16-0. It was for the World Heavyweight Championship, who Edge was the champion at the time. Edge was actually the one who was going to break the streak, but Edge refused to break the streak. So Undertaker won the match. He won the World Heavyweight title. WrestleMania, now this is where we get to the good stuff. My favorite is the 4 matches with Shawn Michaels and Triple H. So it was WrestleMania 25 with Shawn Michaels. Undertaker went 17-0. It was a singles match with Shawn Michaels. WrestleMania, which was one of the greatest matches ever in the world. WrestleMania 26, again with Shawn Michaels. This time it was streak versus career. Undertaker put his streak on the line, whereas Shawn Michaels put his career on the line. Undertaker, of course, won. Shawn Michaels had to retire. It was one of the greatest matches in history. Or one of, not forgotten matches, but it was overshadowed by the WrestleMania 25 match. That takes us to WrestleMania 27 with Triple H. It was a no-holds-barred match. Oh, by the way, the match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26 was also no disqualification. WrestleMania 27 with Triple H. He was 19-0, no-holds-barred match. That takes us to WrestleMania 28 against Triple H again. Undertaker became 20-0 in a Hell in a Cell match. Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. It was the end of an era match. I will get more in depth with it later on. And WrestleMania 29 with CM Punk, he became 21-0. It was a singles match, and Paul Bearer got involved in the story of the rivalry. Paul Bearer had recently passed away at the time. That takes us to WrestleMania 30 with Brock Lesnar. Undertaker, for the first time ever at WrestleMania, was defeated. That takes his streak to 21-1. It was a singles match. I will get more into that later. WrestleMania 31 with Bray Wyatt, 22-1. It was a singles match. WrestleMania 32 with Shane McMahon, 23-1. It was a Hell in a Cell match. And if Shane McMahon won, he would have control of Monday Night Raw. And if Undertaker lost, he would no longer be able to compete at WrestleMania, which I didn't know that part, actually. Undertaker won the match. Shane McMahon ended up gaining control of Monday Night Raw anyway, so that kind of made the match pointless. WrestleMania 33 against Roman Reigns saw Undertaker's second and only the second loss at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns, bringing his record to 23-2. It was a no-holds-barred match. His next year at WrestleMania 34 was against John Cena, 24-2. It was a singles match. And finally, WrestleMania 36. Undertaker did not compete at WrestleMania 35. He was there, but he did not compete in it in general. He didn't have his gear or anything. He wasn't in a rivalry or anything like that. He wasn't injured, none of that. Sorry if you heard that crack of my wrist. Anyway, so that takes us finally to WrestleMania 36 against AJ Styles, where he won in a Boneyard match at 25-2. And that record stands to this very day. Undertaker is 25-2. The only two men to defeat him at WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. I have one guy that should have won that streak, or should have beaten the streak, and that was Triple H at the end of an era match, and I will get into why when I talk about the match. So let's go back here, make sure I'm recording here still. Let's go back to we're just going to go back to his early career, talking about his early career now that the streak is established. It is with Jimmy Snuka. He has a couple rivalries here and there. He participates in a couple house shows. Just skimming through all this now. I'm really trying to skim through all this. In February 1992, Undertaker's ally Jake the Snake Roberts tried to attack Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth with a steel chair, and Undertaker stopped him. And that's when Undertaker for the first time had turned babyface. If you don't know what the word term babyface means, it means good guy. People were not booing him anymore. People were cheering him. So at this point, Undertaker's career, he was a good guy. And this is when the feud with Jake the Snake started coming to play, and they had, of course, their match at WrestleMania. And the rest is history, honestly. Then he goes on to defeat Giant Gonzalez by disqualification. So I want to take you to 1991 when he defeated Hulk Hogan for the WWF Championship. So The Undertaker lost the title back to Hogan. I got to go back a little bit here, sorry. So in 1991 Survivor Series, Ric Flair, I believe, was in WWE. He got involved in the match. He put a steel chair in the ring. The referee, I don't think, noticed this, and Undertaker tombstoned Hogan on top of the chair. 1, 2, 3, Undertaker's your new WWF champion. And apparently ended up getting vacated However, due to the controversial endings of the two title matches between Undertaker and Hogan, the title was vacated from Hogan the next night. So I'm guessing the second match, Hogan won the title back from Undertaker. And it was vacated off of Hogan. The company was without a WWF champion until Ric Flair earned it by winning the 1992 Royal Rumble. That takes us to, okay, I already talked about this with Jake the Snake and the feud. He had a couple feuds with other people. Yokozuna is definitely a big one because Undertaker's real-life relationship with Yokozuna was personal. He was a really good friend of his. They also had a group called the Bone Street Crew. And there were a lot of people part of this. Undertaker, Paul Bearer, the Godfather, or people know him as Papa Shango, and some other characters as well, Kama. Mark Henry might have been part of it. I don't know. But Yokozuna was one of those guys, part of that group. Rikishi, I believe, at one point was part of that group. The BSK, Bone Street Crew. To this day, they still have that crew. Don't know if they hang out in real life now. No idea. That's on them. No idea. I don't know. So Yokozuna at the time, he was on a warpath too. He kind of debuted not that long ago. It was really cool rivalries with the Undertaker he had with Yokozuna. He had a casket match at one point with Yoko, and man, it was so crazy to see Undertaker actually beat Yokozuna. So this is a rebirth of the Dead Man at this point. At this point, we introduce the Dead Man character. Undertaker is no longer the Western Mortician. His hair is straighter now, and he has purple gear. And this is the infamous purple gear that we all know and love. Even to this day, it is still talked about. It was a very short stint with the purple gear, but man, it was so cool. Again, he was still with Paul Bearer. But I will get into that in a minute, how Paul Bearer betrayed The Undertaker. I will get into that. Between 1994 and 1996, Undertaker had the purple gear. He was, again... So how did Undertaker come back with the purple gear? Let me get into that before I get into his career with the purple gear. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. So, I'm trying as hard as I can not to read off the article. That's why I'm kind of all over the place, jumping around. So, it was at the Royal Rumble, I believe it was, and Undertaker was put into a casket, locked in, and a couple superstars were pushing the casket up the ramp. Yokozuna, I believe, was one of them. It was a match with Yokozuna. Undertaker lost a casket match. He got locked up in the casket. They're pushing the casket up the ramp. All of a sudden, green smoke is coming out. Now, back in the day, Undertaker didn't have purple smoke or blue smoke or anything like that. It was green smoke. It started coming out of the casket and all that. And then on the Tron, you see Undertaker. Undertaker is basically dead, and he's inside the casket talking to us. And the Undertaker will never rest in peace, is what Undertaker said in the casket. The Undertaker will never rest in peace. And then all of a sudden, Undertaker started rising up to the rafters, and that was the last time we saw Undertaker until he re-debuted with the purple gear. That takes us to Ted DiBiase. Yes, Ted DiBiase. You heard that correctly. The guy that debuted The Undertaker. So Ted DiBiase came out and he's like, listen, The Undertaker, here he is. And out comes this man in gray gear. And obviously he was an imposter Undertaker. He was the imposter Undertaker. And for weeks, the imposter Undertaker was in a couple matches here and there, whatever. And there was a feud here with the real Undertaker and the imposter Undertaker. Paul Bearer makes his return and basically says, no, this is not the real Undertaker. The real Undertaker's coming. He's coming. That takes us to SummerSlam in 1994, if I am not mistaken correctly here. It was supposed to be the imposter Undertaker against the real Undertaker. So here's the deal. Ted DiBiase came out with his Undertaker. Paul Bearer came out with the by himself. He came out. He had the urn in his hand. he opens the urn. This light shines out of it. It's making like this sound, like it sounds like a one of those sounds like on a box TV when you turn the channel and the channel doesn't work and you see like all the crap on the screen, like the that kind of sound it was playing. You spinning around in the ring with the urn and all that. All of a sudden, the Undertaker's music hits. Out comes the Undertaker, this time in purple gear. It was the real Undertaker in purple gear. He comes out an absolute badass. This is probably my favorite Undertaker gimmick of all time. I really, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Anyway, they have this match. The real Undertaker ended up winning it, and that's when the real the imposter Undertaker had went away. We never saw him again. Even to this day, we never saw him again. Not that I can remember, at least. So that takes us to his career, 1994 to 1996. He had a couple rivalries here and there. IRS was one of them. King Kong Bundy. I'm just reading through. Excuse me. I'm just reading through this. He had a match with Kama at one point. He defeated him he defeated Kama in a casket match at SummerSlam. I'm not sure which SummerSlam this was. I think it was the next year's or SummerSlam. King Mabel. He had a really great rivalry with King Mabel, who everybody knows now as Big Daddy V or Viscera back in the Attitude Era. However, Viscera injured his face, and Undertaker came out with that mask for a very short period of time. He had that white mask, and it was so badass. Oh, it was so cool. Which, speaking of masks, Undertaker was actually meant to debut with Mankind's mask at the time. Mankind was never in WWE. Mankind was in WCW, out in other promotions. And they wanted to debut Undertaker in that mask originally. But that mask ended up going to Mankind, who debuted, I believe it was 1996, 1995 era-ish. Very ironically, attacking The Undertaker. And this ties into Undertaker having a rivalry with Mick Foley, or Mankind, as everybody knows and loves so very much. And by the way, the Undertaker mask was basically, quote-unquote, the Phantom mask, as they called it. So right now we're in the main event of Royal Rumble, January 1996. Undertaker's unmasked of his Phantom of the Opera-like facial covering in WWF Championship, and he had a championship match against Bret Hart. He hit a tombstone pile driver on Hart, but Diesel interfered, and that basically started the rivalry with Diesel. And of course, Undertaker had that rivalry with Diesel. I believe there was I don't know if it was a Monday Night Raw. There was a casket in the ring, outside of the ring, and Diesel opens it, and Diesel himself is inside the casket. And a lot of people are saying, I actually thought it was a doll, or like a I don't know, like a polyurethane doll, or I don't know, something. But it actually, from what I heard, it was actually Diesel inside of that. But you're wondering, if Diesel opened the casket and he's on the outside, how is he on the inside as well? Well, people at home got to see that Diesel, like, I guess he was edited in. I don't know. I still feel like it was like a doll or something. I still feel like it was like a mannequin. That's the word I'm looking for, a mannequin. But that rivalry was pretty cool too, as well. And as well with Sid Vicious earlier on as well. He had a match with Sid Vicious. But this takes us to Mankind. The rivalry of Mankind. Now, Undertaker had a couple matches with Mankind. Most famously, the Buried Alive match and the Boiler Room Brawl. The Boiler Room Brawl is a very important match. By the way, this is the first ever Buried Alive match. Mankind versus Undertaker. Going back to the Boiler Room Brawl match, it's a very important match. Because this is when Paul Bearer betrays The Undertaker. So I will get into that in just a minute. So they're having this match. It's inside of a boiler room, and the goal here is to get to the ring and get the urn from Paul Bearer. Now, eventually they're fighting backstage, and they make their way to the ring at the same time. Mankind gets attacked on the outside, and eventually Undertaker. Now, by the way, people, for those of you wondering, how are the people live watching this backstage? Like, these guys are backstage fighting. How are they watching it? So they had TV monitors set up around the ring for people to watch. It was on the big screen as well for people to watch while they were backstage fighting. And apparently the Boiler Room Brawl match, like inside the Boiler Room, was filmed on one day. And the night of the Boiler Room Brawl match is when they walked out of the Boiler Room, is when the live footage started coming in. So it was two different footages. The first footage that we saw in the beginning of the match was actually recorded. And then the second they leave the Boiler Room, that's live on TV for real. And they had to act as if they were in a match for like 25 minutes, Anyway, this takes us to inside the ring. They're in the ring, Mankind's outside of the ring. Undertaker does his knee pose, trying to grab the urn. All of a sudden, Paul Bearer hits the Undertaker with the urn, betraying the Undertaker. He gives the urn to Mankind. Mankind wins the match. And this leads to, I believe it was the Buried Alive match, if I'm not mistaken, as well. But no, the Buried Alive match, I believe, was the first match. Not the first match, but let me see. Undertaker won the Buried Alive. So there was another Buried Alive match. I actually didn't know about this one. He chokeslammed Mankind to the open graves and subsequently shoveling enough dirt on him so he was covered. Actually, I do remember this match. I do. So there was enough dirt on Mankind to end the match, and that was it. You bury your opponent alive. Undertaker won the second Buried Alive match, and I keep forgetting there was a second Buried Alive match. So I believe that ended that. So at this point, Undertaker still had a rivalry with Paul Bearer. This is basically almost the start of the whole Brothers of Destruction. Undertaker had a brother story. So now we're at this point, the Lord of Darkness era of The Undertaker. So Undertaker basically came out and he had an event, I believe it was against Mankind. It was a shark cage match. Paul Bearer was in the shark cage. Undertaker comes down from the rafters in bat wings. His gear was different. He didn't have the purple gloves anymore. He had all black gear. The last time we had seen the purple gear was, I believe, the Buried Alive match with Mankind, or it might have been the Boiler Room Brawl, which I believe was the last time we saw Undertaker with the purple gear. It's either one of the two matches. That was the last time we saw Undertaker with that purple gear. So that takes us to the Lord of Darkness era of The Undertaker. Between 1996 and 1998, he was dressed in all black. He had, I think, the cross at that point. He had, again, still in a rivalry with Mankind. He would try to assault Paul Bearer in the match, or before the match, I should say. He put his arm through the shark cage trying to grab him. And it was so cool to see Undertaker in his gear. He also had a ponytail as well at one point in his career. Don't know how long that lasted, but it lasted quite a while. And he also developed the teardrop under his eye. He had it tatted on his face. I'm not sure if that was a real tattoo or not, or if it was just drawn on. It looked like a real tattoo, especially considering after the matches were over, it wasn't like faded out or anything. So I'm leading to believe that was a real tattoo, and he got it removed at one point. Because Undertaker would have still had it to this day if it really was a tattoo. I don't know. Anyway, the rivalry with Mankind. He debuts as the Lord of Darkness. This is the third incarnation of the Dead Man persona. Let me see. I'm just scrolling through here. I really got to scroll through here. This is the point where Undertaker starts to get feuding with Stone Cold Steve Austin. As well as Psycho Sid at WrestleMania 13. The Undertaker appeared as the old Western mortician, donning the trademarked gray wrestling gear, accessories, boots, spats, tie, gloves, along with a pitch black entrance with only a white spotlight shined over him, contrasting the purple-blue semi-darkness associated with the rest of the Deadman incarnation. When was this? This was WrestleMania 13 against Psycho Sid. Really? I didn't know that. I should go back and take a look at that. Hang on just 1 second. Let me see here. Just excuse me one moment. Okay, that's very cool. I just realized that. Undertaker, I just realized that. That was literally the gray gear. I didn't, how did I not notice that? Oh my god. Oh, that's insane. Alright, well, Undertaker had the gray gear back then. Anyway, this takes us to his rivalry again with Paul Bearer. This time, Paul Bearer had basically came out and said, hey, you have a brother, and his name is Kane, and he's coming for you, all that. And Undertaker didn't really believe that. He was like, yeah, he was burning the fire. I don't believe that. And then apparently that takes us to In Your House in 1997. Kane debuted in the match with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. Now, this is the first ever Hell in a Cell match. Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. Very awesome match another great match by The Undertaker. Shawn ended up winning the match. When Kane made his debut, Undertaker was an absolute shock. Kane came in, he tombstoned The Undertaker. Shawn Michaels crawled down, got the pin, 1, 2, 3. The match was over. Undertaker lost the first Hell in a Cell match. Paul Bearer and Kane walk away. And that started the rivalry between Undertaker and Kane. I'm not going to go too in-depth with it because I've already talked about it in the Brothers of Destruction video. But basically, they didn't want to fight each other, or Undertaker didn't want to fight his brother. Eventually, he got him to do so, and they did it at WrestleMania 14, where Undertaker won that match, taking his streak to I don't know what number at that point. So we just skip through here. He basically, Undertaker, after that, I believe he started feuding with Stone Cold again. Or he was part of, I think he was part of the Ministry of Darkness as well. At that point, he started making that, he made that group, the Ministry of Darkness, who consisted of Big Boss Man, Shane McMahon, I believe, was part of it too. Or am I thinking of the corporation? I think I'm thinking of the corporation, or even the corporate ministry I'm thinking of right now. But Viscera was part of it. Midian. And I believe and Paul Bearer obviously was in there as well. I think a couple other people I'm missing too. But at this point, Undertaker, he feuds with Kane. And he ends up teaming with Kane as well with the Brothers of Destruction. Not going to get into all that. Any of that stuff. He fights Kane at WrestleMania. Undertaker and Stone Cold had another rivalry of defeated Kane and Mankind to win the tag team championships. And I believe at one point in 1998, Undertaker had his match with Mankind again, and this time it was a Hell in a Cell match. Believe it or not, it was the third ever Hell in a Cell match. Because apparently there was another one on Raw or something. But the first one was Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. The second one I don't know who was in. But the third one was Mankind versus The Undertaker. This was an absolutely violent match. Violent. Viewer discretion is advised to watch this match because Undertaker throws off Mankind off the cell. He chokeslammed him through the cell, chokeslammed him into some thumbtacks, tombstoned him, 1, 2, 3. He beats Mankind. Mankind had half of his body was destroyed. He lost like 4 or 5 teeth in the match. In the process, he had to go through some surgeries. He had a lot of countless stitches he had to get after the match. Undertaker worked that match with a broken ankle, and I believe at one point, Undertaker was like, "Hey," or Mankind was like, "Dude, like, you all right? How's your ankle?" And Undertaker's like, "Dude, Like, you just got thrown off the Hell in a Cell. Like, forget my ankle. Like, what about you? Like, your body's broken in half. Like, speaking of that, JR, amazing commentary. He says that he did not know that this was going to happen. He basically said, like, he almost shit himself when this happened. Completely almost shit himself. So he had no idea. The commentators had no idea this was going to happen. So they had that match, and originally Undertaker or Mankind was supposed to have a match with someone else, or Undertaker, I believe, was supposed to have a match with someone else, but it ended up being Mankind and Undertaker instead. But later on in the event, in the King of the Ring 1998, Mankind would come out again. It was Stone Cold versus Kane in a First Blood match for the WWF title. Mankind would come out again and basically hit Stone Cold in the head with a steel chair. And that would basically help out Kane in the match. Kane won the title. Undertaker came out as well in the match. You know, everybody's brawling, and it was just a disaster. But I can't believe, man, you believe Mankind came out again. He got thrown off the Hell in a Cell and chokeslammed through the cell. And he came out again. That man is a legend, the hardcore legend, for a reason. But that's another day for another podcast. We're talking about The Undertaker now. Again, Undertaker basically, once again, he's feuding with Austin. He feuds a lot with Kane and Austin, and he's basically up there in the top cards. And he has the Ministry of Darkness, and he's part of the corporate ministry. He's got a couple rivalries going. Ministry of Darkness, Dead Man, 1998 to 1999. He's basically taking souls and digging holes. No pun intended. Or pun intended, actually. You know what? Screw it. The pun was intended. Okay. Don't get mad at me. I am absolutely sweating right now. I'm sorry. I have a leather couch, and I'm just sweating everywhere. Anyway, I gotta hurry this up before my girlfriend gets home. So that takes us to the Ministry of Darkness, Undertaker, 1998, 1999. This was one of my favorite eras of the Undertaker of all time. 100%. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He would sacrifice people. He put Stephanie McMahon on his cross one time. He put Stone Cold on the cross. I believe the Big Boss Man was on it as well. He would try to sacrifice people and cut people open and stuff. And he never actually did it, but I believe at one point he was feuding with Stone Cold one time, and he was in a funeral parlor, and he was about to cut open Stone Cold, and he was just talking in these gibberish words blah 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 whatever the hell he was saying. He had the sword in his hand, ready to stab into Stone Cold, and all of a sudden Kane runs in and attacks him and stops him, and it was so crazy. This was just such a crazy time to be around WWE in the Attitude Era. It was so cool. But that was basically, he was in multiple rivalries, Ministry of Darkness. So the Ministry of Darkness, the completed Ministry of Darkness, consisted of the Brood, Edge and Christian, and Gangrel, the Acolytes of Bradshaw and Farouk, Midian, and Viscera. I can't believe I forgot the Acolytes in the Brood. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. That was the complete group right there. So there was a period of time where he did not wrestle. He had to undergo a hip replacement surgery, so there was a time where he would come out, but he wouldn't wrestle. And basically, his ministry members would wrestle on his behalf, and he would just be out there in that throne, that badass throne. And this is my favorite part of The Undertaker. It was the 1999 era of The Undertaker when he had that freaking robe on. It was, oh my god, it was so good. I love that. That's probably my favorite Undertaker ever, when he sat on the throne and he would talk and the music's playing. It is so cool. Oh, it's so badass. And speaking of badass, this takes us to I'm trying to go through this quick. Undertaker's kidnapping Stephanie McMahon, and they formed the corporate ministry at one point. Undertaker's feuding with the Big Show and teaming with him at one point as well. So Undertaker ended up getting injured at one point, and this takes us to his return in 2000 and 2001 as the American Badass. He had multiple rivalries as the American Badass. He teamed up with Kane. He feuded with Ric Flair, Triple H, and many others. Chris Jericho, I believe, as well, he feuded with. WWF champion Triple H, King of the Ring pay-per-view. He was booked with Kane, and he won the tag team championships against Edge and Christian. Benoit was involved in this rivalry as well with Undertaker at one point. At one point, Undertaker and Kane had a match at SummerSlam, and he unmasked Kane by accident, or I don't know if it was on purpose, actually. It was on purpose. That led to Kane he fled the ring, and it led into a no contest. Undertaker won that match. Undertaker and Kurt Angle at one point. Rikishi, when he chokeslammed him from the roof of it was a Hell in a Cell match. Rikishi, Stone Cold, Triple H, The Rock were all in the match. And at the top of the cell, Undertaker chokeslams Rikishi through like this truck that had like it was like haystacks or whatever, and it was so cool. Undertaker teamed up with Kane eventually, and ended up at No Way. They received the title shot at No Way Out, facing Edge and Christian, and then champions Dudley Boys in a tables match where they were unsuccessful. Undertaker went on to defeat Triple H at WrestleMania 17. Kane went on to focus on Triple H, whereas Undertaker, I believe, went to go focus on Stone Cold. No, sorry, Stone Cold and Triple H were teaming at the time, I believe. So that's basically a Stone Cold and Triple H heel era. This was the first time that we seen Stone Cold Steve Austin as a heel, or at least as the Stone Cold Steve Austin character, like that character, the official Stone Cold Steve Austin character. Brothers of Destruction would team up again. There's an invasion storyline with DDP, and Undertaker's involved with Diamond Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page is talking about his Undertaker's wife Sarah and all that, and it's such a crazy time to be around. Again, this is the invasion era with ECW, WCW, and all that, and oh man, DDP used to stalk Undertaker's wife Sarah at the time. That led to a SummerSlam match. That led to a match against each other. Undertaker won it. Undertaker became Big Evil between 2001 and 2003. Again, he had some runs with a couple superstars here. He had Mavin eliminated him from the Royal Rumble match 2002. This was Undertaker's. Man, Undertaker was a badass at this point. The American Badass character. It was just so cool. He would come out in this bike, and he had the trench coat, sunglasses, chains, and spitting tobacco and all that. And he was just a badass character. He was a biker character, and it was a lot of people say that was his greatest character of all time, and I disagree with that, actually. He's probably my second or third favorite character, but his Deadman character, it's number one. Hell or high water. I don't want to hear it. A lot of people, everyone has their own opinions, obviously, and I'm not one to disagree with your opinions. It's your opinion. You like the American Badass better than the Deadman, that's fine by me, but I personally love the Deadman character. So anyway, Undertaker goes on the feud Ric Flair at WrestleMania. At this point, the streak was established, but not official. Like, it wasn't like an official goal. This was WrestleMania 18, by the way. This takes us to WrestleMania 19, which I believe he skipped. Did he skip WrestleMania 19? I don't believe he did. Let me just go ahead. At one point, Undertaker faced off against Jeff Hardy in a ladder match, which this was an incredible match. Jeff Hardy, man, he really gave it to The Undertaker. However, The Undertaker won the match. It was for the WWF title. the undisputed championship, I should say. At the end of the match, Undertaker raised Jeff Hardy's hand in respect, and he walked off. Undertaker lost the title at Vengeance against The Rock in a triple threat, also involved with Kurt Angle. He got involved with Brock Lesnar and Eddie Guerrero, and Undertaker defeated Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle in a triple threat to become a number one contender for the renamed WWE Championship and challenge Brock for the title Unforgiven. It ended in a double disqualification. The feud carried over in No Mercy and a Hell in a Cell match with Undertaker performed a legitimately broken hand and ultimately lost to Lesnar. This leads to Big Show and A-Train. He had a brief rivalry with them. He defeated them at WrestleMania. It takes us to the feud with Kane when he returned as the Dead Man persona. He came out with the hat and the trench coat, and the music was a little different. He had the Druids, and Paul Bearer as well was by his side. The story was that Undertaker was buried by Kane at Survivor Series. It was a buried alive match against The Undertaker and Mr. McMahon. Kane came out to attack The Undertaker, and he buried The Undertaker with Vince McMahon. He buried it with the backhoe, and at that point the story was, all right, Undertaker's dead, he's buried, he's gone. He's not coming back. And that obviously was not the case. He returned at WrestleMania 20. By the way, the Survivor Series match was November. Then it takes us to December, January, February, March. Takes us 4 months later to Undertaker's Dead Man persona return. So this was between 2004 and 2007 at this point. Undertaker came out with that long trench coat and the hat, and he had multiple rivalries. After that, he had a rivalry with Randy Orton. Again, now this is at the point where the streak was an objective. It was an objective to beat the streak. The streak was the number one thing to go for at WrestleMania. It was the streak, period. Randy Orton acknowledges that Undertaker had a streak. Eventually they had a long rivalry, actually. A really cool rivalry. Undertaker had mind games and shit. And Randy Orton, I believe, had a victory over Undertaker at one point. And that led to WrestleMania. Undertaker won the match. Undertaker started growing his long hair out again because the American Badass character, he had shorter hair. But then when he came back as the Dead Man persona, you can see he was starting to grow his long hair back. So at this point, his hair's starting to grow. His next match, I believe, was at WrestleMania. It was with Batista, I believe it was. He had a feud with JBL for the WWE Championship. He also, at the Great American Bash, had a rivalry with the Dudley Boys and Paul Heyman. Paul Bearer was inside of a concrete crypt, and Paul Heyman threatened to pour the concrete into that crypt if Undertaker would not lay down for the Dudley Boys and let them defeat The Undertaker. Undertaker lays down, the Dudley Boys go for the pin. 1, 2, Undertaker kicks out, the crowd goes crazy. Paul Heyman's like, you know what, screw it, I'm freaking pouring the concrete in anyway. He pours it in. Next thing you know, Paul Bearer is drowning in concrete. And that basically was the end of Paul Bearer for now, until he returned, I believe it was 2011. We'll get to that shortly, probably. He had a couple matches. He had a last ride match. He had rivalries with the likes of Heidenreich, Mr. Kennedy. This is WrestleMania 21 to Randy Orton. I already discussed this. Muhammad Hassan. He had a rivalry with the Great Khali at one point, who debuted against The Undertaker, and Great Khali had beaten The Undertaker at one point. Yeah, that was literally the rivalry. I don't think was that long. Sorry if I'm pausing for a second because I'm just skimming through all this. This just goes on and on and on. It's way too much here. Eventually he feuds with Batista at the next at WrestleMania 22. At SummerSlam, Orton defeated The Undertaker in a WrestleMania rematch. Just reading through this here. Undertaker resurrected at the Survivor Series when the Druids delivered a casket that was struck by lightning and went up in flames. And I do remember this moment. I believe it was on a SmackDown. Oh, no, Survivor Series. I just read it. Randy Orton was in the ring. He was shocked about it and all that. And the rivalry with Randy Orton was so cool. I think it was one of his greatest rivalries, I'd say, to date. Apart from the Shawn Michaels Triple H matches. This takes us into... So I already talked about the Great Khali in his rivalry, Mr. Kennedy. He had a rivalry with Mr. Kennedy and MVP at one point, and he basically re-teamed up again with Kane. Let me see. Just skimming through all this right now. Undertaker, between 2007 and 2010, he was the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And this was a pretty cool run, too, as the World Heavyweight Champion. He beat it off of Edge, of course, at WrestleMania, the next WrestleMania, which was WrestleMania 24. He would go on to defend the title with Batista, I believe, once again in a steel cage match. Mark Henry was the next WrestleMania, I believe. Mark Henry, I believe, was WrestleMania 23, by the way. WrestleMania 24 was Edge. The WrestleMania before... WrestleMania 21 was Randy Orton. Then it was Batista. Then it was Mark Henry, I believe. Or it could have been the other way around. I'm not sure. I literally read the thing not that long ago. Anyway, Undertaker defeats Edge for the world title at WrestleMania. He goes on to feud with a couple other people, like Edge too. Edge. The rivalry did not end there. He feuds with Edge. At this point, at the 2008 Royal Rumble, The Undertaker competed in the Royal Rumble match itself, entering at number 1, but eliminated by Shawn Michaels after lasting most of the bout. At No Way Out, The Undertaker defeated Batista, Finlay, the Great Khali, MVP, Big Daddy V in a SmackDown Elimination Chamber match to become the number 1 contender for Edge's championship at WrestleMania. That leads to the WrestleMania match. He won it. Again, I'm going through it, but this takes us to Undertaker's rivalry. Undertaker lost the world title. I believe it was to Edge. Again, he lost the title. The Undertaker lost. Let me see if I can find... Edge and The Undertaker faced each other again for the vacant championship. Oh, it was a vacant championship. I'm sorry. Apparently the title was vacated. And stripped him of the title. Okay, so Vicky Guerrero had banned the Hell's Gate, and apparently Undertaker, I guess, used it in a match, and that led to him being stripped of the world title. It was vacated. Undertaker and Edge had the world title match, and Edge basically won the world title back. This takes us to the four-way saga. This is a very important match for everyone involved. Triple H, Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels. This takes us to WrestleMania 25 with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. This was considered the greatest match in the history of professional wrestling. And I think I can agree with that. This match went all out. Period. But after the WrestleMania 25 match, the greatest match of all time considered, arguably, Undertaker would go to feud with other guys, and eventually that would take him back to Shawn Michaels once again. when Shawn Michaels attacked The Undertaker, I believe, inside of an Elimination Chamber match. I'm not sure if this was the first encounter or the second, but Shawn Michaels attacked The Undertaker in an Elimination Chamber match. And that started up the rivalry again. I'm not sure if that, like I said, I'm not sure if that was the beginning of the rivalry. Yeah, I think that was the second time around. So that takes us to WrestleMania 26. It was streak versus career. Undertaker beat Shawn Michaels. It was not as great as the last year's WrestleMania, but it was still a very great match. And it takes us to the Triple H match. Undertaker had a feud with CM Punk at one point before that, actually. A couple other rivalries as well. I'm just going to skip through all the rivalries. Rey Mysterio, Batista. But obviously we all want to get to the Triple H match at WrestleMania 27. So Triple H basically attacked Undertaker. No, I know it. Okay, so Undertaker basically made a return. I believe it was on a Monday Night Raw. And he came out in his entrance, whatever. All of a sudden, he's taking his hat off. All of a sudden, Triple H's theme plays. Triple H comes out. 2 returns within 5-10 minutes span. Undertaker literally makes his entrance. That's a return. But 10 seconds later, Triple H's music hits. That's another return. He comes out. They both stare each other down. Next thing you know, they're at WrestleMania 27. They're fighting each other. Undertaker wins. This was one of the greatest, another amazing, freaking god-awesome match. One of Undertaker's most god-awesome matches in the history of the world. I can't find the word, sorry. The history of the world. Undertaker won the match. It was a no-holds-barred match. And what the hell is that noise? Y'all hear that? Don't know what that is. It's coming from the bathroom. Let me see if I can close the door here. Excuse me. That doesn't... Yeah, that does kind of quiet it a little bit. I'll close the door. Sorry, they're drilling something downstairs. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, that takes us to a couple other rivalries. I believe Undertaker at this point... No. So this was the point. Undertaker wasn't really wrestling that much at this point. So now we're at the final years of the streak. 2011, 2014. Let me see. So Undertaker, let's say at this point he's 19-0. He beat Triple H at the first encounter at WrestleMania. This is the second match, by the way, at WrestleMania. A lot of people don't. No, was it? I'm not 100% sure. But it might have been. Anyway, yeah. So Undertaker and Triple H ended up having another match, one last match. It was the end of an era match between The Undertaker and Triple H. And as you can tell, I am speechless. This match was just perfect. I fucking love this match. This is the most underrated match, in my opinion. Period. The most underrated match I've ever watched. Everyone says the first Shawn Michaels match was the greatest. It was. But I don't know what it was about that Hell in a Cell match. It just ticked all the boxes. It really did. Sorry about that. I had to step away for just a second. But anyway, going back to the match at WrestleMania 28, this was just a back and forth, just violent match. Oh my God, these two laid each other out in that ring. Shawn Michaels was the special referee. It was so perfect to end this. End of an era. This is where the streak should have ended. Triple H should have defeated Triple H should have defeated The Undertaker, and they all would have walked out the same way that they did at WrestleMania 28, the way they did it. That's the way it should have been done. It should have been done, the way they did it was perfect, except they should have done it the other way around, with Triple H being the winner instead of Undertaker. Triple H should have ended the streak. That, period. Triple H should have ended it. And I'm sorry, I'm walking around my house here. I'm just looking out the window. My girlfriend should be home any minute now from work. I may have to continue this podcast after, but as you can see, I'm trying to hurry through it because it's already very, very long. I don't know how long this podcast has gone on, to be exact. So, but this WrestleMania match was my favorite match out of the 4 of all time. Probably my favorite all-time match. I don't know what it was. The setting was just so cool, and having the Hell in a Cell and everything, and it was just so perfect. But the lead up to this match, this last match, Undertaker was basically cutting his hair, and he kept cutting it until Triple H finally accepted it. And eventually, Undertaker came out with this robe, like a hood, like a hoodie, and he would come out, and but nobody knew that the hair was cut underneath. But at the same time, they did, because he was cutting promos, cutting his hair, and that's how confident he was in beating Triple H. He was going to cut his hair off, and that was the old memory of The Undertaker. And then, obviously, WrestleMania 28, Undertaker comes out, and he takes the hood off, and his hair is shaved off. He has the mohawk, and it's so cool. But that's the end of an era. That's the end of that rivalry. That takes us to a Brothers of Destruction reunion at the 1000th episode of Monday Night Raw. Kane was surrounded by a bunch of guys. Undertaker came out and made the save. Brothers of Destruction reunited. We saw a couple stints with The Undertaker. He teamed with Team Hell No, Kane and Daniel Bryan at one point. That was basically it from his career, honestly. He had a very awesome rivalry with CM Punk, which brought us to WrestleMania 29, where Undertaker defeated him. Took us to WrestleMania 30, where he got beat by Brock Lesnar. And I know I said I was going to get into it, but I kind of don't want to talk about it, to be honest, because it was such a sad moment. He was 21-0 at the time, and all of a sudden Brock Lesnar comes in and just defeats the streak. He should have never defeated it to begin with. He had a concussion in the match at one point, and to this day, Undertaker cannot pinpoint where in the match he got concussed. But Undertaker was concussed in that match. So, it was after the end of an era match where Undertaker started to fade out. Eventually, he had the feud with Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt would try to call him out. He would never show up. He never showed up. And eventually, WrestleMania 31, he finally came out. He was starting to grow the long hair back again. Shades of WrestleMania 20. And I loved it so much. That takes us to the next WrestleMania, I believe, with Shane McMahon. And then he briefly, I believe as well, teamed up with Drew McIntyre, or teamed up with Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon at Extreme Rules. He also had a match with Roman Reigns where he got defeated at WrestleMania. The next WrestleMania was with John Cena, and he defeated John Cena. That was pretty cool to see that too. John Cena was calling him out, and that was a long time coming to see John Cena versus Undertaker, even though we had seen this match before in the past, but not many people remember that. And you can tell I'm skipping around here, because at this point in Undertaker's career, he didn't really make that many appearances. He didn't really have that many matches. It was basically just WrestleMania at this point. So after the John Cena match, he had his final match. It wasn't even in the arena. It was a cinematic match with AJ Styles. He beat AJ Styles in the Boneyard match. That was a cool build-up too. AJ Styles used his real name, talked about Michelle McCool and his kids and all that. And that's when Undertaker decided to merge all three characters. All three, I mean, The Undertaker, the American Badass, and Mark Calloway, his real self. Sorry about that. I had to step out once again. Won't happen again. Anyway, that takes us basically to the end of his career. He got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. That was it. He has a documentary now, and he's doing great. He's enjoying retirement. And that takes us also to the end of this podcast. I near like the middle of it, like I started to rush through it, but I just saw that the podcast was just getting really long, and I'm getting so tired of talking, and it's getting pretty late. So I really appreciate you joining me to listen on. I probably didn't provide as much information as I should have, but I'm kind of trying to like get them out, these podcasts out, because I want to get to the SummerSlam review. But I really hope you enjoy these. I tried giving you my input as best as I could. Usually, like his American Badass and like Return Dead Man, I don't really know much about some of the rivalries. I'm only bringing up like the more memorable ones, like Heidenreich and at the time Heidenreich, Mr. Kennedy, and MVP, and Mr. McMahon at one point, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Kurt Angle. He just had feuds with all these guys, and he was in and out with Kane, teaming with Kane. He faced Kane at WrestleMania 20, you know. I obviously remember that match. And I know mostly his earlier WWE career, like his like 90s career, and I also know his current career today. That's the only two that I can tell you off the top of my head, because they're both of my favorites, and I can sit here all day talking about it. But Undertaker was an all-time great. I'm pretty sure we all know and love him so much. He will always be remembered as the Phenom. No one will ever duplicate the streak. I don't want to hear it. His streak is better than Goldberg's. His streak is better than Asuka's. I don't want to hear it. Nobody has a streak like The Undertaker. I don't care how many times Goldberg won a match. I don't care how many times Asuka won a match. Hell, Andre the Giant was undefeated for like 15 years. 15 years. And that's so cool. That's probably my second favorite streak, is the Andre the Giant streak. And that wasn't even like, I don't even think that was built on like, Andre the Giant is undefeated. Well, they did mention that like it was undefeated, but it wasn't like a goal to defeat his streak. It was a goal to defeat him, but like they didn't bring up like a streak or anything, if that makes any sense. The goal was just to defeat him, because he had never been defeated before, you know. So his goal, that was kind of just the goal, I'm gonna defeat Andre the Giant. But it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna defeat Andre the Giant's streak. You know what I mean? Like the Undertaker. Undertaker was 21 years undefeated. Until, of course, the freaking Brock Lesnar, man. A lot of people, man, hate Brock Lesnar since that day. And to this day, I do hate him for that. But at the end of the day, I really do like Brock Lesnar. He's a great athlete. One of the all-time greats in WWE as well. I hate to say it, but it's true. Anyway, I'm just going to end this podcast here. I know it was a pretty long one. The next episode, I'm going to try squeezing in Paul Bearer. Don't know when that will be coming out, but I can promise you that I'm going to try getting a SummerSlam review in. The SummerSlam is next Saturday, so hopefully I'll get that in. Maybe like the beginning of next week, I'll try getting a Paul Bearer one through, and then I'll put in the SummerSlam review. I did say I was going to review pay-per-views, so let me see if I can stick to that promise. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. Thank you very much for listening on. I know this podcast is going on forever, and I promise you I'm ending this now. And I know I kind of jumped all over the place, and I'm just, skimming through everything, and I probably missed so much of Undertaker's career. But I basically just wanted to cover, like, the more all-time favorite moments of Undertaker. Like his greatest rivalries, because he's been in rivalries with you name it. He's been in rivalries with everyone, so it was way too long of a podcast to cover everything. No way. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I like to hope that you would join me for the next one. And see you guys later. Thank you for tuning in to the Wrestling with the Apester. Peace out. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. my Facebook page. Go ahead and follow it. I will put it in the description as I always do. On my Facebook page is where I normally post latest episodes. I'm also going to be putting my YouTube channel down below as well in the description of this podcast. That I don't really upload on that often. It's pretty rare, but I'm putting it down there for you to go check it out anyway. So, but more importantly, I want you guys to go check out my Facebook page, the Ape Squad. That's where I'm going to be putting latest episodes of this podcast. And please tell your friends about me, tell your family about me, tell your grandmas, grandfathers, tell your uncles, aunts, brothers, sisters, anybody, your cat and your dog even. Tell them that this podcast is up. Go ahead. I want everybody listening to this stuff. Again, I appreciate you guys listening on here. And I am going to go to bed because I am exhausted. And I'm going to get some water too because I'm pretty thirsty. So, yeah, again, have a great night, everybody. And hope you have a safe night. And I cannot wait to go to Water Country Sunday. That's going to be awesome. So, again, have a safe night. Have a great night, everybody. Peace out. Oh, guys, one more thing. This is the next day after I uploaded this podcast. I was pretty tired last night, and I do apologize for that. But there's one thing that I did forget to mention. Doing a podcast when you're just exhausted is it just isn't. Not a good idea. Don't do it, So, a couple of things. One, I did notice, I'm listening to the podcast right now as we speak. After it's uploaded, I am going to add this segment to the already uploaded podcast. Don't know if it's going to actually update the podcast, to make it a little longer now, as it already is. But one thing is for certain, you heard a lot of this. A lot of I don't know if I did it right, but it sounded like someone was blocking the speaker on the phone, and I do apologize. I do use my phone to record these. May or may not get a mic, like an actual mic for this, but we'll see how that goes. But one thing about the Undertaker, real quick, I forgot to mention. I thought I'd throw this out there. I know it's pretty random, out of the blue, just to throw it out there, but something I forgot to mention. How did he come up with the American Badass character? Basically, he thought the Deadman character had run its course, so he felt like he needed to shake things up a little bit, and he needed to flow with the times. Things were changing in WWE, and it was the Attitude Era still at this point, so he decided to be a little bit more like himself, just like everybody else was being more like themselves. Triple H, for example, he used to be this guy that would come out and take a bow and all that. And next thing you know, Triple H is the Game, right? Triple H never wanted to be that character. He wanted to be the Game. And then you got, say, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was the ringmaster. He's like, bro, I ain't no ringmaster. I want to be this badass, And then you got Undertaker, who was a Deadman character. But he was like, you know what? I want to be more myself. I'm going to come out in my bike, and play my own character, and that's how it basically came to play. So once again, I am ending this off one last time. I'm not sure. I don't know if this is going to update the podcast length on Spotify. Don't really know. This is my first time doing it after it's published. I might even undo it and republish it again. I'm not 100% sure, but if it doesn't work. But once again, I do appreciate you tuning into this podcast. Today is the next day. It is the next day. It is July 29th. It's a Saturday morning, 12:32 right now as we speak. I do appreciate you tuning in, and I do apologize sincerely for my stuttering and the mic being blocked off. It sounded like I was moving around and blocking the mic and you couldn't hear me. And I apologize so badly for that. And I probably just did it now in this little recording here. But I am trying to improve as much as I can here. This is my first time podcasting, so I have very little knowledge of it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for listening on. Once again, for the final time, peace out, guys, and have a great day. Just when you thought I was done. Nope. There's one more match I forgot. Silly me. You see what happens when you upload a podcast at 10:30 at night and you cover one of the greatest legends of all time that's had an infinite amount of matches in his career that I can't even name all of them. How could I forget this one? It was very recent too. How do I segue into this one? It is the first time ever Brothers of Destruction versus D-Generation X. And this match was awful. Oh, and let's not forget, speaking of awful, Goldberg versus The Undertaker. Awful. Another awful match. I'm sorry to end this podcast off on an awful note, but, I just forgot those two matches even existed. Many more, but listen, I pinky promise you. Right now I have my pinky out. You can't see it. My pinky, it's right here. You can't see it, but it's right here. I pinky promise you this is the end of this. This is it. This is over. I've covered every match that I can think of off the top of my head. And if I forget anything else, I'll mention it in the Paul Bearer episode. Listen to me. This is done. It's over. Problem solved. I got a notification. Anyway, yeah. Those two matches, DX versus Brothers of Destruction, not even going to cover because they were terrible. Terrible matches. Same thing with the Goldberg versus Undertaker. Terrible match. Don't ever want to cover it. They were awful. Okay, Undertaker almost ended his life in that match with Goldberg. Kane got unmasked in that other match with the Brothers of Destruction and DX. Kane got unmasked, and Triple H got injured. And this was Shawn Michaels' return back to the ring, and it was terrible. Awful, god awful. Don't ever want to cover it again after I am done speaking to you in this moment. Anyway, this is the final segment here. This is the final part here of this podcast. I am ending it here right now. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, I do apologize for the stuttering and the blocking of the mic. Sorry if I literally did it right now, but I think it's because I'm putting my finger on the bottom part of my phone. Right now I'm standing up with my phone in my hand, so it, my finger does tend to go on the bottom of the phone like this. See, you probably can't hear me right now. See, you can hear me now. See, probably, I don't know if, I don't know if that's the problem, but anyway, again, I do apologize for my stuttering. I do apologize that I do not have notes for these things. I should have notes for them, but hey, screw it. I kind of just wing it. I just pull up some notes on Wikipedia and screw it. I wing it and I just go off of that. Wikipedia could be right, could be wrong with a lot of these facts. I don't know. They are right with most of them. They are right with pretty much everything I read as far as I'm concerned here. If there's anything wrong with it, just let me know. If there's anything that's it doesn't seem right. Like, oh, wait a minute, he didn't face that guy at this time. I know, and I'm not trying to lie. Like, that's not the intention. I'm not lying. Like, it's just what I'm going off of on the Wikipedia. So, and also there's parts too that I don't read, and I'm like, okay, he faced this guy at SummerSlam, and then I go to read it, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, no, he didn't. It was WrestleMania. Again, I do apologize for that. I kind of don't think before I speak, if you can't already tell. Anyway, okay, I'm ending this off. This is absolutely ridiculously long. I don't like to make a podcast longer than an hour and a half, but covering Undertaker's career, like, I could be here for about a week straight making this podcast. But again, I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, I pinky promise you, this is the last part of the podcast. Thank you again so much for your time and cooperation. Tell your friends, brothers, uncles, aunts, aunts, dogs, and cats about me. Tell everybody about me. Post it up. Let's get a word out. Let's have some more viewers, man. I'm trying to get up. I'm not the greatest podcaster of all time, obviously, not by no stretch of the imagination. But you never know. You never know. Never say never. So, thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great day. By the way, this is the next day. Obviously, this is the next day that I'm recording this. So, thank you very much for tuning in, and have a great day, everybody. Peace out. Oh, Water Country tomorrow. Can't wait for that as well, man. I am so stoked for that. Anyway, peace out, guys. Have a great day.